Hello and welcome back. This is Grillenheimer. Okay, yesterday was a rough day. I still have yet to see the other half of my family. I have yet to see my brother. My sister-in-law passed yesterday afternoon. Now, my brother, when he married this woman, she had already had a family, had one child with somebody, and her ex-husband actually passed away not too long ago. Um, and they'd had one child, and I'm not getting too specific or saying any names or anything here. And their child had another child, and so the daughter and granddaughter are with my brother. Um, and they're all just trying to comfort themselves because it's been somewhat shocking. She was in pretty good health, or so they thought. Um, got sick, had complications, was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And this is just, and I was in a bit shocked myself, and I found out not through my immediate family. I'll just put it that way. I knew she'd been in the hospital. I mean, and that there were some struggles with that, but I'm not going any. I don't want to get into too many details here. But I think, and originally I was going to look up. I'm turned to Mark 5, in case you're wondering. And originally I was going to go over Jesus bringing Lazarus to life. That is a tough name to say. But I found this one instead of miracle over sickness and death of Jesus here in Mark 5. And there's a lot of things that was going on at this moment. Because the multitude was following him. The apostles were all around him. They were probably trying to keep the people off of Jesus. In the meantime, a woman sick comes up and touches him on his robe. He can feel the power leaving him. And he's like, someone touch me, someone touch me. And the apostles are like, what are you talking about? There's so many people around. And he goes, no, I know, I just healed someone. And he turned to a lady. In the meantime, well, he is telling that lady to go and be healed. And she felt the transformation and the healing power like that touching his robe. There's another commotion going on nearby, someone talking about a death, a 12-year-old young girl. And while he was still speaking to the woman that it was trying to go for, if I could just touch his robe, I'll be healed. He was praising her faith. Praising her faith. And then he's like, they came from the house of the synagogue official, saying, your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher anymore? So they were trying to get Jesus' attention for the death of their daughter. At the same time, like I said, there's tons of people around him. It's mass chaos. But he is God in flesh. He is Jesus. He knows what's going on in our hearts. He's knowing what everyone's thinking around him, and he can know where the problems are at all times. But Jesus, overhearing what was being spoken, said to the synagogue official, do not be afraid any longer, only believe. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. So he left the multitude. He only allowed 3 apostles to come with him. And they came to the house of the synagogue official. Basically like a church official. They're Jewish. They're not Baptists. They're not Protestants or anything like that. But I guess the best way for us to think of this is like, think of a deacon. Think of a deacon that just lost their daughter. and going to the pastor or preacher, hey, my daughter has died. Can you give me solace? Can you give me prayers? That's kind of what's going on here. And he beheld a commotion and people loudly weeping and wailing. They are in mourning. Only 12 years old. A woman, not a girl, a woman who was very sick and bleeding, blood flowing out of her. And when she touched his robe, trying to touch him in the multitudes, probably crawling on the ground just to be able to get and touch him, felt the healing automatically. And other people are trying to get to him. And he takes his apostles into this man's home, and there's another commotion. There's other stuff going on. They're mourning, they're crying, they're at a loss. They've lost somebody. Not just someone over 70. They're not even barely a teenager. Of course, back then, if you were in your teens, you were pretty much an adult and probably would be betrothed to somebody to marry, whether you liked them or not. But let's keep going. And in entering in, Jesus said to them, why make a commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is asleep. And let me tell you, I got to speak at my grandfather's funeral back in 04 or 03, when he passed away, because we got a pastor to come and talk, and he did, but he's like, I don't know this man. If y'all would like to, he came to us, the family, if y'all would like to say something, you can, and if you want, blah, blah, and I rose my hand, and I raised my hand and said, I want to say something. And so they gave us the night, and originally I was going to write something nice and big, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. And I thought, well, my grandmother had passed in the 90s, my grandfather had just passed in 03, and I'm thinking, you can't have one without the other. They were our grandparents. They held our family together. I'm trying not to get emotional here. Because my grandmother really held our family together. My grandfather was a very strong individual. And the whole death stare stuff, that was, I mentioned, it's the same grandfather from about 10 videos ago or so. So I get up there, and I'm trying to think about what I'm going to write to say the next day, and I'm like, okay, I can't have one without the other. Let me just, I don't want to say too much. I don't have a whole lot of time. I knew that. My cousin was going to, two of my cousins were going to do something. My brother was going to say something, and I was going to get to say something. And I thought, let me just write words. Things that came to mind, and they were just going to be notes for me to talk. And what ended up happening was just the opposite. And these words were very visually descriptive in events of our life, of their life. Getting emotional. That would make you go there. One word. Like the lake house. How many times have I mentioned the lake house here? From drawing Transformer boat characters and sailboats and speedboats, and that came from there. All my inspiration and love are the people I look up to still. And so I would say this word or this idea, and I had people laughing. In my family off to the side, I had a cousin, she is laughing and crying. I had everyone else laughing and crying. And my cousin, she's like, only he can do this. I mean, it was wonderful. And I mentioned, one of the last words that I mentioned was the smell of Vicks, or idea, the smell of Vicks in Noxzema. And two teenage girls who I have no idea who they were on the front pew. They started laughing and crying all at the same time. Joy. It is emotional, of joy, of remembering somebody they didn't know my grandparents, but they knew somebody like that. That when you go into an old person's home, there's certain smells that are real triggers of emotion, of remembrance of the people you loved. And that hit with them. And it helps with the morning when we laugh. And so Jesus, of course, this is completely separate here. Why make a commotion and weep? The child has not died, but asleep. They began laughing at him, but putting them all out, he took the child's father and mother and his own companions and entered the room where the child was. So they laughed at Jesus because Jesus said, "Oh, she's not dead; she's just asleep." They were just having a ball. And so he got them to leave. He got them to leave, but he also got them to laugh. You know, they're that Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie. You know, laughter has a power, and I don't think this was unintentional. I think it was also intentional, because they are mourning over the loss of someone that died. They know the 12-year-old is dead. she's asleep. No, she's gone. And so he took along the child's father and mother and his own companions, you know, John, James, and Peter, and entered the room where the child was. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha cum, which translated means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl rose and began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they were completely astounded. And he gave them strict orders that no one should know about this. And he said that she needs to eat something. She needs to eat something. So not only did Jesus here, oddly enough, gave them strict orders, don't tell anyone I brought her back to life. All the people that he just had leave the room because they were laughing, they're going to know too. They're going to find out that, you know, this guy's a joke, or what, you know, this Jesus guy, this is hilarious. He thinks the girl is asleep and not dead. Of course, they're going to see this girl later. We never hear the rest of this. We just know of the actual miracle itself. And of course, my sister-in-law is not going to get back up and walk. She's gone. But as a believer, that's another word. Believer. Do you believe? What did he say just on the other page? When he was overhearing the people about the synagogue official, do not be afraid any longer. Only believe. Only believe. Believe in what? Believe in him. Believe in God. Believe in the power of God. Believe in the power of miracles. Believe what you're seeing may not be final, may not be real. Because he brought her back to life. But we all, when we believe in him, and if you read all of the book of John, that's all he's trying to do is convince us to just believe. Just believe. That's what John was doing. And that's what Jesus is telling the multitude here. It's what he told the synagogue official's family. Just believe. Take me to her. And after mourning the death of my own sister-in-law, who was a very refined lady, very fine woman. She had her moments. Very fine woman. I'm not sure if she was a believer, but I think she was. Because her last 3 weeks were terrible. I don't want to go ahead and get into specifics. In the hospital, visitation, all this other mess that was going on, that thanks to my brother's headstrongness and bullheadedness, did him well. Because it showed his love for his wife. It showed his love for her, which is a quality I've never seen in my brother quite this way before. I have. It's been a very long time ago because I don't get to spend a lot of time with my brother because we're both married. We have both our own issues, and there's a bit of a distance here. I'm trying not to sound like Uncle Owen or Aunt Beru, but we have our own families. We have our own issues to deal with. And it's not sometimes, even though we almost live in the same city, not quite, it's hard to get together than like just Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so I feel assured she is with her parents in heaven, that they are with the Lord. And let's end with Ephesians 6:10 through 12. Kind of as a benediction for you to finish your day, or whenever you happen to see this on YouTube. Because you don't just need this, I need this too. People poo-poo this book. People hate this book. People think this is myth. People don't want to believe. People don't want self-control. What this book is all about. It's about us. It's about how to love each other, how to live, getting prepared for death, and getting prepared for the afterlife. And where are you going? Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Yeah, that sounds a bit fantasy, very medieval. But we got to remember when this was written. Very long time ago. Not just before the internet, before a printing press, which changed the world. Where communication was not easy. It was word of mouth, word of foot, by walking, sending letters with actual seals. It's a very different time. We take so much of this technology for granted. And I can remember when a lot of this was not here. So, when you pass, where are you going? I've heard some interesting NDEs. But put on the full armor of God so we can help fight the spiritual battle that we are living day to day now. Praise be to God. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You knew this was coming when I sent out just a 20-second video. And I want to thank you for all the views, all the encouragement, all the prayers. Praise be to God. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.